One of the growing narratives about all of the polling is that there is herding going on. Herding being the idea that you have a bunch of polls clustered around a coin flip, and then that you come in as a pollster, you do a poll and you go, oh my goodness, it's looking like a Kamala blowout. I don't want to be the outlier here. I don't want to be really wrong. I'd rather be as wrong as everybody else.
What's up, everyone? In this one, David Pakman is on full Copium with the rundown of the 2024 election odds. He's laying out numbers from 80-38, real clear politics, and betting markets, trying to paint a 50-50 picture of Kamala Harris versus Trump. Obviously, by this point, we already know the result, but it's always nice to look back and see if there was any real truth or actual understanding of what these people said. So let's unpack Pakman's copium-filled breakdown, call out some of the obvious biases, and see if this narrative really holds up, as we already know.
Where the 538 projection is landing is essentially a coin flip. 538 has locked and frozen. Is that your final answer? Yes, lock it in. With essentially a 50-50 race. 538's final projection, there is a 50% chance that Kamala Harris wins, a 49% chance that Trump wins, and a slightly less than 1% chance that we end with a 269-269 tie in the Electoral College. Make of that what you will. In the Real Clear Politics battleground average, this is Real Clear Politics doesn't have like a more overall kind of forecast, but it'll come down to the swing states. And on that basis, the Real Clear Politics battleground state polling averages have Kamala Harris winning Wisconsin and Virginia.
Here's the kicker. Pakman's cherry-picking states, hyping up Wisconsin and Virginia as evidence of a close race, while ignoring the wider red wave across the battlegrounds. Trump ended up sweeping states like Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, which Pakman downplays here. This selective narrative is a classic example of bias, only acknowledging what suits his preferred outcome.
Virginia, and Trump winning the other battleground states, Arizona to Trump, Nevada to Trump, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia to Trump. Now, what I can tell you is that from these states here, if the outcomes are as Real Clear Politics has it, except Harris gets Pennsylvania, then Harris gets the 270 she needs, and she becomes president.
Here's Pakman clinging to one narrow path, hinging on Pennsylvania like it was a realistic possibility for Harris. In reality, Trump won Pennsylvania, and this whole hypothetical didn't pan out whatsoever. Pakman builds suspense around this thin chance, but it's more wishful thinking than actual serious analysis.
Nate Silver's final silver bulletin. He locked it at midnight 30 this morning and says, happy election day. We ran our simulation model for the final time. Out of 80,000 simulations, Kamala Harris won 50.015% of them. She did not win 49.985. This is as close to a coin flip as you can get. And Nate Silver says, I'm not quite sure what to say about this, but we'll have a newsletter out later. So essentially another 50-50.
Another coin flip reference, but let's not forget that betting markets knew better than the so-called experts, favoring Trump heavily in the days leading up to the election. Pakman dismisses these markets as biased for Trump, but in hindsight, the markets were on the money. Pakman downplayed them as quote-unquote rich Trump supporters dumping money, but those odds weren't wishful thinking. They reflected the actual outcome perfectly.
50 coin flip. As you know, Alan Lichtman's qualitative analysis, which looks at 13 keys, says that Kamala Harris will win. We had Alan Lichtman on the show explaining that in detail, and you can check out that interview. And then we have some prediction markets, each of which is worth more or less, depending on who you ask. The predicted market has ended up with Trump just slightly ahead of Kamala Harris. You might say, how do these end up adding up to more than 100? The answer essentially doesn't matter, but these are not percentages, is the thing to understand. But Trump with a very, very slight lead, really close to a coin flip. Polymarket, which is the Peter Thiel associated prediction market, has it for Trump by roughly 62 to 38. This is, of course, the big criticism of this is totally being pushed by rich Trump supporters dumping money in for Trump, and it doesn't really reflect the likely outcomes, but this has it at roughly 62 to 38 for Trump. And then we have Kalshi. Kalshi is another betting market. This one just days ago almost converged at 50-50, but since has spread towards Trump once again, landing very close to the poly market betting market, 59% for Trump, 41% for Kamala Harris. That all being said, even this prediction market does expect Kamala Harris to win the popular vote and expects Trump to win the Electoral College. So pick what you want. This is going to be close electorally, unless it's not. And let me explain that. One of the growing narratives about all of the polling is that there is herding going on. Herding being the idea that you have a bunch of polls clustered around a coin flip, and then that you come in as a pollster, you do a poll and you go, oh my goodness, it's looking like a Kamala blowout. I don't want to be the outlier here. I don't want to be really wrong. I'd rather be as wrong as everybody else. So then you get a poll that says, I think Kamala's going to crush. And you say, well, let me adjust some of the crosstabs and the methodology and the sampling and the weighting so that my poll ends up looking just like all the others. And then the next poll comes in and does the same thing. So there is a possibility, if that theory is convincing to you, there is a possibility that this is not close. If it's not close, it's tough to imagine Trump blowing out Kamala. It's easier to imagine Kamala Harris blowing out Trump. So that's the kind of caveat. Now, as far as the Senate, my opinion is there's not that much to talk about as far as the Senate goes. It seems clear the Senate is going to be going to Republicans. The 538 forecast has it as Republicans win 92% of simulations and take control of the Senate, whereas Democrats win only 8% of simulations. If the Republicans are essentially guaranteed to get 50 seats, if they get 50 and the presidency, they have control. There are also many scenarios in which Republicans get 51 seats or more. And in those, it won't even matter who wins the White House. I expect Republicans to have control of the Senate. And finally, what about the House of Representatives?
Now he's onto the House, calling it a coin flip as well. But again, the momentum was clearly favoring Republicans. Pakman's desperate to make it seem like Democrats were still in the running, but with Republicans now holding the Senate and likely the House, his up for grabs narrative fails flat. Pakman's entire breakdown is built on hypotheticals that just didn't plan out. This is exactly what Copium looks like, a fantasy spun out to keep hope alive when reality says otherwise.
It's basically a coin flip. The 538 average has it 51-49 for Democrats. It really will come down to turnout, and it will probably mirror to some degree. I mean, let me put it this way. If the Seltzer poll is right, that Kamala's leading Iowa, you probably will see Democrats controlling the House. That's the most likely outcome. On the other hand, if it doesn't all go as a pro-Kamala as some are hoping and suggesting, then it's totally conceivable that Republicans take control of the House. So those are the final numbers there. Let's now get to Kamala Harris's final really case for herself on the campaign.
Obviously, now that we know that results, now that we've seen the results, it's kind of funny to watch these videos back, but I still would love to hear your guys' opinion down in the comments below. If you think his analysis was any truthful whatsoever, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.